Festival like this is a beautiful indication of the kind of thing that I truly, truly believe in, and I think makes our society more whole and more pure.
We do not take it for granted that Boulder was chosen as the first North American satellite festival. It's a huge honor we will not forget, and we are enriched because of it. We are indebted to both the local and international people that came together to make that happen, and we hope it's a tradition that continues for decades to come.
Literary festivals like this one build up an environment and an ecosystem to nurture readers and to promote the business of books. They provide an invaluable forum for writers to connect with other creative people.
We sit there peering into those electronic grids in front of our eyes, and it only increases the desire to see the real thing in the flesh. To actually hear an author speak firsthand, to read from their work, to hear the tones of their voice modulate as they read their most treasured passages of prose.
For us, it's special. This was our mothership, and it continues to be. The other editions that we have across the United States are smaller versions, different programming, but smaller versions.
Welcome back, everyone, to the first session of the day. We've had an extraordinary virtual festival so far. And on behalf of JLF Colorado, festival co-directors Namita Gokali and William Dalrymple, Teamwork Arts, the Boulder Public Library, and the City of Boulder, we welcome you to this session. Past, present, future, a life. Laird Hunt and Selah Saterstrom in conversation. Acclaimed authors Laird Hunt and Selah Saterstrom tell stories encompassing a character's lifetime. Through readings and conversation, Laird and Selah will share what motivates them to describe the complex tapestry that forms the story of a life. We'll begin with some readings. Selah Saterstrom is the author of the novels Slab, The Meat and the Spirit Plan, and The Pink Institution. Also a book of essays, ideal suggestions, essays, and divinatory poetics. Selah is the Director of Creative Writing at the University of Denver. Please give a warm welcome to Selah Saterstrom. Selah, over to you.
Wonderful, thank you so much. Thank you to JLF Colorado and to Jesse and to all the folks who make this programming happen. It's a lot of people, so thank you so much. And great thanks to my friend Laird Hunt. It is wonderful to share this space with Laird and to be in conversation with him. And I guess it's different times, so good evening, good morning. For some people it's early morning, but it's thank you for being here. So I'm going to do a very brief reading from my book of essays, Ideal Suggestions, which takes its name from another book, one widely considered the first self-help book published in the United States. And it was published in 1893 in the United States by a man named Henry C. Wood. And the title of his book, here I'll show you, this is an original copy, is this mouthful: Ideal Suggestions Through Mental Photography, a Restorative System for Home and Private Use, preceded by a study of the laws of mental healing. So I came into this possession of this book. It belonged originally to my great-grandfather, then my grandfather, then my mother, and then it came into my possession. And Mr. Wood's theory in the late 1890s coincided with the advent of photography being available to the masses and more available within kind of common culture. And so his idea was that one's brain could photograph what he called ideal suggestions, sorts of positive affirmations, and that the solar energy of the photograph would correct the lunar imbalances or the lunacy of the afflicted person's brain. So whether you were afflicted with alcoholism or lesbianism, your brain could photograph yourself into a better space, according to Mr. Wood's philosophy. And so, as I mentioned, this came down through a family lineage, and my great-grandfather made extensive notes in the margins, and then my grandfather commented on his notes, and then my mother commented on those notes. So the text has become this kind of transgenerational midrashic commentary on the struggles of mental health and being in a body. So in an attempt to heal my own self through dealing with the loss of these family members who had debilitating depression, I decided for an extended period of time to follow Mr. Wood's advice and brain photograph the ideal suggestions. And though I was not healed in the way that Mr. Wood suggested I might be, I did write a poem. And so I will read that poem and share that with you tonight. And so I use occasional phrases from the original text, which has this kind of strange hybrid scientific biblical rhetoric, makes its way into the poem. And I would also mention that this piece talks about Matthias Grunewald, the German painter who lived between 1470 and 1528, who was one of my grandfather's favorite artists. He was a painter. So it does reference him. And also before I begin, I'll show you how the brain photographing would work. So you would flip through the pages of Mr. Wood's book and blink, and your brain would photograph these ideal suggestions. So using his technique, I did quite a bit of writing over a period of time. So here's the resulting poem that I'll share with you this evening. And thank you again for being here. It's called On Ideal Suggestions When Brain Photographed Through the Paintings of Matthias Grunewald, dedicated to my grandfather. Let us say lovers separate, the orchid and the wasp. Thought confers realism upon entities or just plain old piss poor conditions. Let us say that what we dwell upon, we become, or at least God, if it be God, moves across the waters. Honorable and also a lunatic, the vision must be clarified through the medium of the outer eye engraving a secret upon the tablet. Gravitation is this vast atmosphere in which we live, where the earth, saturated with iron oxide, is red. Let us say thought messages sent in any direction come back. They are like light in mirrors, opposites vanish. Lower forms are kindergartens for broader manifestations. Let us say this is electricity. To the deceptive and sensuous, the concept of divine influx causes dinner parties. Life is a continuous communication. Exuberance fills every space not close against it. Let us say, I let it possess me. It overflows so that I give it to those around me. This is called waiting, and lover is the given name. Let us say the name represents the type manifested through loss. Both our bodies are already within, but remain undiscovered. And we make through suffering. Someone's resurrection is imminent, so let us say the family blessing reserved for holidays. Grief and shame are pictures with a seeming life. They give sensations. They picture themselves on the body. Let us say they free fuck through the classifieds. Love is the lover feeling through me. The painter removes the corpse from the cross, cinder and recipient, orchid and wasp. Gruenwald did much of his painting where the earth, saturated with iron oxide, is red. I myself have seen it sodden with rain and looking like the mud of a slaughterhouse. Let us say a swamp of blood. Meanwhile, we live the life. Others are in us and we in them. Let us say if soul currents do not course outward, they are doomed. All lines of relation converge in our love. We recognize sufficiency. We recognize agility, rapture, concord, symmetry, and pleasure. Life sets up animated statues with perfect correspondences. Let us say how intolerable that we show forth and are. We charge our harm to weather and contagion. I deny the tyranny of your body, but after a bottle of red wine do affirm its instrument. The lover perception is the riddle. Let us say that we must have an experience in matter. Let us say the earth saturated with iron oxide is red. Let us say those words of the lover so often repeated, fear not. We must believe or we will never get out of this shithole. Our nourishment is unseen but real. Let us say unreconstructed. But the pilot grasps the helm and steers the orchid waspward. True, forms are built by subtle devices and are also shadows. Dust is seized and fashioned. Let us say our materialism upon this scene tends to be dull. To build with enduring material, we must build with bones. Let us say here as much as in the hereafter. I hereby link myself to trust in what I cannot see. Through it, I am drained. Let us say we laid aside the curtain, hung between the lover and the self, and called the process death. The ideal is a transition as gentle as stepping into an adjoining hotel bar. After all, Enoch walked with God and was translated. Let us say the orchid and the wasp suggest that conditions are surging, and this has an exquisite effect. Life is more beautiful than we imagined. And I'll end there. I think I'm at time, so I will stop there. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Selah. That was beautiful, moving, and fascinating with the prologue and the story of the poem. So thank you so much.
Thank
And
you.
now, you're most welcome. Now we will be privileged to a reading from Laird Hunt. Laird is the author of 8 novels, a collection of stories, and 2 book-length translations from French. The new novel, Zori, is forthcoming in February, so you all should be on the lookout for that. Kind One was a finalist for the PEN/Faulkner Award for Fiction and won the Anisfield Wolf Award for Fiction. Never Home won the Grand Prix de Littérature Américaine and Italy's Bridge Prize, and was shortlisted for the Prix Femina Étranger. The Evening Road was a Financial Times of London Best Book of 2017, and In the House in the Dark of the Woods was a New York Times Editor's Choice selection. His reviews and essays have been published in the New York Times, Washington Post, Wall Street Journal, Daily Beast, Guardian, Irish Times, Los Angeles Times, and his fiction has appeared in many literary journals in the US and abroad. A former United Nations press officer, he taught for many years in the creative writing PhD program at the University of Denver before joining the literary arts program at Brown University, where he teaches and works today. I heartily encourage you all to run out and buy Laird's books. And please join me in a warm welcome for Laird Hunt. Over to you, Laird.
Thanks so much, Jessie. It's just a thrill to be back in the context of the JLF and to be reading with my dear friend and former colleague Selah Saterstrom. It's just pleasure all around. I'm gonna read the opening pages of Zori, which Jessie mentioned is coming out soon in February. And it's set in the 20th century, and which sort of feels like it's 100 years ago now somehow or other. And it tells the story of a life that kind of runs the length of the century. You'll just get a little taste of it here. Zori Underwood had been known throughout the county as a hard worker for more than 50 years, so it troubled her when finally the hoe started slipping from her hands, the paring knife from her fingers, the breath in shallow bursts from her lungs, and smack dab in the middle of the day, she had to lie down. At first, she carried out this previously unthinkable obligation on the worn leather of the daybed in the front room, with her jaw set, hands pressed tight against her side, staring up at the end of a long crack that ran the length of the ceiling, or at the flecks of blue light thrown onto the legs of the dining room table by the stained glass J that hung in the south window. When after several minutes of this, she felt her breath slowing and the blood flowing back out through her veins, she would ease herself up, shake her head, and resume whatever activity had been interrupted. Once, though, after she had slipped in the garden and landed in a tangle of rhubarb, she lay down on the daybed and fell into a deep, dreamless sleep that wasn't interrupted until late in the evening. The cat began mewling and scratching at the side door. It took her a long time to come fully into consciousness, and as she lay there, vaguely urging her eyelids to open, aware that she was not quite awake, it seemed to her she had never felt so comfortable, so careless, so at ease. She set a feather pillow on the daybed and pulled a light wool blanket out of the upstairs closet. She began to intersperse her work in the garden and yard with regularly scheduled naps. She would lie on her side with her back to the room and look at the deep white of the wall. She would be unaware that her eyes had closed. She would sleep. Every now and again, her conscience would chase her up off the daybed and back into her weedy rows or fruit-filled trees, but mostly during the time she had allotted, and sometimes past it, she just gazed at the wall or slept. One morning, well before it was time to lie down, she looked over at the pillow and blanket and soft leather and realized, with a shudder that seemed to chill and warm her both, that she was filled with longing. She had never liked to dream. After diphtheria took first her mother and then her father, she was raised by an elderly aunt who told her that people were born dreaming of devils and dark roses and should beware. This aunt, whom her dying father had only called on reluctantly, for she had drunk too deeply from the cup of bitterness after a badly failed marriage, shook and scolded Zori vigorously when, as happened frequently during the first month, she woke up crying. If she woke up screaming, she received a slap. Sometimes she received a slap anyway. Either because of what she was leaving behind in the dizzying hallways of her head, or what she was waking to, Zori came to harbor what proved a lifelong distrust of the deep hours, as her aunt referred to them, when the mind played tricks on itself. Days were different. Zori ran, she skipped, she won a prize at school for turning the best cartwheel. She and the other children played with hoops and balls in the yard. No one could climb a tree as quickly as she could, and there were only 2 boys in the school who could beat her at arm wrestling. The teacher, Mr. Thomas, would take them on long walks through the woods and across the fields. Often on these expeditions, they were asked to collect interesting objects. Zori would run back and forth like a dog working a field, her quick hands flashing down to the ground and up again. Heart pounding, she would bring her discoveries to Mr. Thomas for inspection. He would lift each leaf or mushroom or insect close to his face, or up to the light, or under his magnifying glass, and with Zori leaning over his shoulder, or even holding the magnifying glass herself, murmur, "Yes, very interesting. This is a good specimen, Zori. Well done." When it rained, Zori sat at her desk and, brow furrowed, labored over her slate while the other children played checkers and spun tops and jumped around the room. She liked the musty smell of the books and the feel of chalk residue on her fingers, and couldn't be convinced that the inside of the schoolhouse was meant for anything but learning. She loved the songs Mr. Thomas taught them and the stories he told them about battles fought long ago. She didn't learn to read as quickly as some of the others, but when she did, she rarely made a mistake. From the start, her mind moved quickly through figures and made light work of anything to do with geography. If Zori was at home, which is where she was to be found on school days after her 15th birthday, she helped with the goat or the garden or the chickens or the cooking or the sewing her aunt took in. Though her ruined marriage had left her at best ambivalent about the faith of her former husband, her aunt never set aside a Lutheran's belief in the redemptive power of work, and something like a gleam, a little bit of breath on a little bit of near burned out coal would enter the old woman's eyes whenever Zori would finish a job quickly and start another one. At moments like those, her habitually pinched lips might part and a few words emerge. Sometimes it was about a plan she had once had to open a flower garden in nearby Frankfurt. A nice place with peonies, to open a flower shop in nearby Frankfurt, a nice place with peonies or lilies in the window, and a chair or two on which her tired customers might sit a moment on a hot day. She would talk about a trip she had taken before her marriage to Bedford, where she had spent hours in a fabric store running her hands over bolt after bolt of crinoline and serge and silk. Every once in a great while, her aunt would sing softly in a voice that was thin but true, songs that tended in the main toward melancholy, like the one about a man who each day put on his suit, cut a single flower from his garden, and carried it 5 miles along a dusty railroad track to the house of the woman he loved. I'll stop right there. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Laird. My mind is always just, I can only think of the word gobsmacked by the specificity of your imagination and your storytelling, and the sensitivity and the vulnerability, the detail with which you enter your characters. It's just enchanting. And I think we have 2 master storytellers here. So I'm really delighted to now turn the rest of the session over to both of you, just bring you in conversation with one another. I know you have some wonderful questions and thoughts to share with each other and with our audience. So over to.
Thanks, Jessie.
Thank you. Thank you. Laird, thank you. It was so wonderful and exciting to hear the first few pages of this new work. So congratulations on this upcoming publication. And I have so many questions, but I will limit it to one.
Yeah, you have to leave me time to ask you questions.
Oh gosh, do I? Oh, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know. I would love. I guess here's a question. Thinking of Zori, I'm just thinking of the ways past, present, and future, and the theme of this kind of conversation, and the way that these characters like really set up in our lives. They move into our imagination. They inhabit our lives. And I'm wondering, on the kind of advent of this publication, what did you learn from this character? I'm just curious what your major takeaways are from having lived with her for so long in these unique ways as the writer of this book.
Thank you for that. It's an interesting history I have with this character. I suppose I've been working on this book for about 15 years. It's a manuscript I set aside for a period of time and returned to for a long time. Zori was referred to throughout the manuscript as Old Woman. So this is someone who has had different incarnations in my mind, my imagination for a long time. And when it was time to really take the plunge back into the book, it felt like returning to someone I knew very well and hadn't seen enough of for quite a while. She's a really she's felt, especially in recent weeks and months, like a kind of balm. It's been like a balm to spend time with this Indiana farm woman whose life spans much of the 20th century, doesn't go much beyond her county in central Indiana, and yet lives this extraordinarily rich life. So it's been like a reminder in a way.
Yeah, fascinating, the calibration of her wisdom gifts to you and this moment this collective moment we're in, for sure.
Yeah. And thinking about sort of thinking on similar lines, and I've known for years that our work has lots of points of overlap, it's been such a pleasure. Actually, one of the virtues of being in your home office for this kind of event is that you can just go back to the bookshelf and pull books off the shelf. And so I pulled both your first novel, The Pink Institution, off the shelf, and then Ideal Suggestions, which which you read from. But I was thinking of this question of, you talked about lineage and inheritance, and we're speaking in the context of past, present, and future. And I'm just wondering how you're living with that notion of inheritance, with lineage, with your so much of your life spent in the South, so much of your imagination that revolves around questions to do with family. So I just wondered, I'm throwing that out without a clear question, but I'd love to hear you talk about any of that.
Oh, thank you, Laird. That's such a great question. Yeah, I'm fascinated by lineage and the ways that we participate in these familial lines that we inhabit, whether it's by blood or otherwise, because sometimes we end up in our families not through blood DNA, but through maybe other spiritual forms of DNA, right? And so we have these inheritances, these legacies, and I'm interested in what we do with them. And story has always felt like a generative, constructive place of deepening understanding and insight around the complexity of being human, because stories kind of allow for the contradictions of family, the difficulties and the joys of family. So I'm interested in what we do with that legacy, and story has helped me to make sense of that. So that is kind of one thing that kind of comes up for me there. It's just a way to try to be in conversation with the mystery of loving very complicated and amazing people. I guess would be one answer to the question. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and if people out there would like to have more experience of these people, take a look at Selah's books, because her books are full of complex, real, wild people, and just all beautifully written.
Thank you, Laird. And I would mirror that right back to you and to your work. And along those lines, thinking about Indiana, thinking past, present, future. I often think past, present, and future are ways that we make sense of the human experience. Like I look at my garden and I don't think, well, sunflowers aren't living according to past, present, and future, and yet humans organize our experience by past, present, and future. And I'm just thinking of your kind of return to Indiana, to this actual geographical place, but also this place that doesn't exist except in your imagination. And I'd just love to hear anything you have to say about the ways that you return to this potent place of Indiana in your work.
Yeah, thank you for that. There's, I guess there's sort of a sense of an eternal right now for me with Indiana. It remains absolutely vivid, absolutely present in so many ways for me. I keep thinking I'm shut of it, and there it is again. In different ways, it manifests, it bubbles up. And this character of Zori, she's very much interested in her absolute right now, and inhabits it in a way that I would aspire to. I can put it on the page, but I have a hard time living it. That just awareness of the immensity of these individual moments that were gifted. And my returns to Indiana, both on the page and then physically, even once during the pandemic with my 15-year-old Eva, who you know quite well, are both like, there's this sense of return, and then there's this sense of immediately of fresh possibility, fresh places for my imagination to roam. And I'm wondering if maybe with our last moment or two, if the South is a little bit like that for you, or how the South functions for you, because it certainly comes back in your work.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Susan Ketchum, who is a Southern Studies scholar, a number of years ago said that the South is a Christ-haunted landscape. And I think that that's quite true for me. Not just Christ, all kinds of haunted, and including former iterations of myself. it is a complicated place that I had to leave and in order to write about, and it is a place that troubles me, pains me, and nourishes me. So it has been a great teacher about contradiction. It has been a spiritual teacher about contradiction in a lot of ways, but I do find myself writing about it again and again and again, and I'm okay with that. There's a lot to parse out about it.
I'm okay with it too. I hope it continues. I hope you keep writing about this stuff.
Well, I hope you keep writing about Indiana, and I guess if we have a moment for maybe one final question, I think we do. Laird, I am curious always, what right now are you working on, and what is nourishing you, like intellectually and creatively?
I'm reading a lot. I just finished Fernando Melchor's hurricane season, which was an unbelievable, relentless journey through intensity. And I'm also reading Boswell's Life of Johnson. So I'm spanning the centuries and the types of approaches and types of books, but reading a lot. And then also, about this project I have. I've got an elephant that's swimming in the Mississippi River, who's telling the story of his days, and he's been in there now forever. This poor elephant, I can't finish this thing, but he's telling the story of how he got there. It's before all the locks were put in, right? So you could swim the length of this thing, so he's kind of taking up America as a subject, and all the fraught possibilities, and certainly our recent years in this country are impacting on that project, even though it's set in the 19th century.
Wonderful. Your hurricane season is incredible. I just started it, and I am blown away. Bad pun, but it relentless is a good word.
It doesn't stop. It never stops. Right to the last.
There's an urgency in the syntax that is incredibly compelling, for sure. So it's great to hear that. I always just appreciate hearing what people are reading and what they're working on. And absolutely. I just want to say, go ahead.
Oh no, because I probably have 10 seconds left, but you were working on a novel, right? You've got a novel that's coming, and that's exciting.
Yes. Thank you so much. Yes, I'm grateful that to have had the time and space for it to happen. So yes, working away.
Right.
So I think we're probably.
Can't wait to read it.
Thank you. Well, you will. I will be for sure. Yes, having you read it.
Well, thank you so much to everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks so much again, Jessie.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. That was like a slice of the richest, kind of like a loop into both of your worlds, and I think it's left me hungry for a lot more. When you talk about story being a generative, a constructive, I can't remember the word you used, but a weave of creating insight into what it is to be human. And you both do that so exquisitely. It's just completely magical. And so thank you. This was a really special session, and I think we need to have a longer conversation for our audience at some point. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Laird. Thank you, Jessie. Thanks to everyone, and thank you all for being here. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks to the JLF team. Appreciate
it.
Indeed. And thank you all for watching and for being a great audience. We encourage you to buy the books, some of which you've just heard snippets of our speakers, through the Boulder Bookstore in the USA, and also through Full Circle in India. Please do follow our handles on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and remain apprised of upcoming sessions. Also, stay tuned to jlflitfest.org/Colorado for the full schedule and information about our speakers. In these unusually difficult times, we have struggled to bring you JLF Colorado without charging a registration fee. If you're able to, we appreciate your donating as generously as you can to ensure a free, seamless, and continuous flow of knowledge. Once again, we would like to thank all our official partners. We hope you enjoyed this fascinating, magical conversation, and we'll tune in for our next session. Emma Donahue, The Pull of the Stars. Emma Donahue in conversation with Maeve Conran, introduced by Sylvain Fabi, Consul General of Canada in Denver. At 7 p.m. MST, 6 p.m. PST, 9 p.m. EST, and 7:30 a.m. IST. Thank you all once again, and now we present a reading by Longbeer Terang from Jaipur Writers Shorts series. Thank you, everybody.
Hi, this is Longbeer Terang from Diphu, Karbi Anglong, Northeast India. So I'll be reading a poem based on climate change. So here it goes. For years we have been confabulating about floods and thunderstorms happening everywhere. You don't recall a year before Diphu, our hometown was inundated, and the situation remains. Every year cyclonic winds wreak havoc to the environs and human assets. We endure unceasing adversities, even hefty and forceful earthquakes. The eyes are unopened, but even in our awakened minds, in the hour of daybreak with an active cerebrum, we discern nothing. Spitting unto the air makes the spit descend on our own face unbreathable, but now it seems my body palpitates. When will the climate alter, unpredictable? Is it the end then? With arrogant self-love and possessiveness, our welfare is at stake. We are a bane to the environment. A day will arrive when our reason of calm and tranquility will alter, unaware we are. Remember the thought. So that is the poem. The title of the poem is No One Knows When the Climate Will Alter. So this poem is basically based on a climate change that's happening every year. So based on that, I have just composed this poem. So that's all. Thank you.
I would call the Jaipur Literature Festival a living library, or perhaps even a library of life. Do join us as we share the excitement of ideas and of debate and dialogue, of the adventures of science, of the joys of poetry and music, the consolations of philosophy, the sense of literature and of life.
So much about the festival in India, the scale of it, the energy of it, and I just love the fact that there is this effort to bring it to other cities in the world.
It's a variety of topics. It's meaningful. I'm just excited. I'm feeling like I've learned a lot to think about, and I appreciate JLF coming here.
Going forward, it would be a very good thing to do for the community to have this event on an annual basis.
I think that when you hear so many different voices and perspectives about the South Asian diaspora and many other issues, you learn that there's a lot of history that you're not taught every day, and I think that that's important to bring in today's world.
I was actually really surprised by the camaraderie I experienced here and the way that people at JLF, both attendees and other panelists, seem to really connect profoundly to literature and care about it.
In 2020, our live version of JLF has been laid to waste because of COVID-19. However, nothing's going to stop us from coming in the way of bringing our writers and speakers to you in Boulder, Colorado, Houston, New York, and Toronto, Canada.
Teamwork Arts, bringing India to the world and the world to India through Indian art and culture for over 30 years. One of Teamwork Arts' signature events, the Z Jaipur Literature Festival, is the world's largest free festival of its kind. With daily interactive sessions, lively debate and dialogue, and international music performances every night, it's no wonder the festival attracts over 500,000 visitors a year. The Jaipur Bookmark, an international B2B event for the publishing industry, happens during the Z Jaipur Literature Festival and sees a confluence of publishers, writers, and literary agents. Teamwork Arts, producers of the Z Jaipur Literature Festival, have taken the flavor of the festival to international shores with vibrant events in the UK, Australia, and the US. Teamwork Arts takes India's artistic diversity to the world with almost 12 festivals of India across continents in a stunning array in over 40 cities. A feast for the senses, these are spectacles of dance, music, cinema, theatre, literature, and so much more. In each of these places, Teamwork Arts' colourful festivals of India are the high points of the annual cultural calendars. Be it Confluence in Australia, India by the Bay in Hong Kong, India by the Nile in Egypt, Ion India in Chicago, Shared History in South Africa, India in the Sunshine City in Zimbabwe, Edinburgh Fringe Festival, Kala Utsavam in Singapore, Sarang in South Korea, festivals in Abu Dhabi, Shanghai, Sweden. The list is dizzying. The Jazz India Circuit is an endeavor by Teamwork Arts to spread the word and sound of jazz across the country. The 2017-18 season, 4 festivals across 3 cities featuring over 25 stellar artists from India and around the world, including Jojo Mayer and Nerve, drummer-singer Jameson Ross, and Dave Weckel, who collaborated with the talented Mohini Day. The Mahindra Kabira Festival celebrates the spirit, lyric and verse of the 15th century mystic poet Kabir in his birthplace, the historic city of Varanasi. Kabir's poetry is about inclusiveness. Mahindra Kabira brings to music lovers an unforgettable experience of listening to leading exponents of the classical Banaras Gharana and rich folk traditions of music on the legendary banks of the mighty river Ganges, along with sessions on art and literature, specially curated walks with famous local residents and delectable local cuisine. The Sacred celebrates the spiritual through music and its ability to heal. International artists collaborate with world music exponents from India amongst the most incredible desert settings on the banks of the Pushkar Lake. Heritage walks, meditation, talks and workshops are part of this weekend experience. Teamwork Arts so promotes and recognizes the best of Indian theatre through the Mahindra Excellence in Theatre Awards. The Meta Week in Delhi is an enthralling showcase of the 10 best nominated plays shortlisted from numerous entries received from across the country and across languages. The Meta Lifetime Achievement Award has been presented to leading lights of India's theatre industry. For the young and the young at heart, the Ishara International Puppet Theatre Festival brings local and international performances to audiences across several Indian cities. While the Multi-City Kahani Festival features interactive storytelling sessions and workshops championing the power of imagination. Bollywood Love Story, a musical. Our international touring productions such as Bollywood Extravaganza and Flamenco India have sold out shows across Europe, Egypt, Russia and Spain. Expressions International Contemporary Dance Festival showcases Indian and international productions, bringing together several dance genres for Indian audiences. Teamwork Arts, celebrating the arts. For more information, visit www.teamworkarts.com